In 48 BCE, the most famous queen in history was sleeping in a tent, ousted from power by her brother and trapped in the desert. The Ptolemaic dynasty was bankrupt and actively fracturing under the strain of a civil war. At the same time, the Roman Republic was expanding. To the Roman Senate, a weakened Egypt looked like the next logical conquest. Cut off from her palace and her military, the exiled 21-year-old had to rely on the one asset her kingdom had left, her mind. While popular depictions often focus on Cleopatra's romantic life, archaeological and written evidence points toward a different set of strengths: her education and her intellect. Her family, the Ptolemies, were Macedonian Greeks who had ruled Egypt for 3 centuries. Cleopatra was the first in her line to actually learn the native Egyptian language. This stone illustrates the linguistic complexity of her realm. Cleopatra was fluent in at least 9 languages, allowing her to negotiate directly with diverse subjects and foreign heads of state. Her formal education reached far beyond linguistics. She studied economics, law, and military strategy, and ancient philosophy, utilizing the resources of the Great Library of Alexandria to prepare for the complexities of governance. These skills allowed her to outmaneuver the most powerful men in the Mediterranean, using rhetoric and logic where her ancestors had used force. By 48 BCE, the Roman Civil War reached Egypt. Julius Caesar occupied the capital of Alexandria. To meet him, Cleopatra bypassed her brother's assassins. In a mission that was less about romance and more about survival, she had herself smuggled into the palace to force a face-to-face negotiation. Once inside, she persuaded Julius Caesar to back her claim to the throne with the weight of Rome's legions. Caesar reinstated her as the ruler of Egypt, firmly binding the Egyptian crown to Roman military power. She later traveled to Rome as Caesar's guest, staying for over a year to cement their political allegiance on a public stage. By leveraging Egypt's vast resources, she secured Roman protection for her kingdom. Back in Egypt, Cleopatra ruled as an absolute monarch. She stabilized the economy and directed massive public construction works, including the completion of the Temple of Edfu. She held public forums to discuss agriculture and commerce, and she aligned her public image with the goddess Isis to win the loyalty of her native subjects. She adapted her presentation to her audience. For religious rites, she wore traditional Egyptian dress, but she governed daily as a Greek monarch. These internal policies built a unified, wealthy power base out of a fractured state, making Egypt ready to project its influence outward. In 44 BCE, Caesar's assassination ended Egypt's security arrangement. Cleopatra pivoted to the next Roman power player, Mark Antony. She offered him the financial and military backing he needed to control Rome. The alliance was transactional. Cleopatra funded his military campaigns, and in exchange, Antony used his authority to expand Egypt's borders. This reached a peak with the donations of Alexandria. In a public declaration, Antony recognized Cleopatra and her children as rulers over vast new territories across North Africa and the Middle East. These silver coins depict both rulers as equals. To maintain this level of geopolitical influence, Cleopatra minted and controlled extraordinary wealth. Cleopatra weaponized the personal ambitions of Roman generals to reconstruct the ancient Ptolemaic Empire. In Rome, Caesar's heir Octavian watched Cleopatra's expanding power with alarm. He needed to destroy her, but declaring war on a fellow Roman like Antony risked a political mutiny. Octavian launched a massive propaganda campaign. He painted Cleopatra as a foreign witch who had corrupted and enslaved an honorable Roman soldier. This strategy worked. It allowed Octavian to frame the conflict as a righteous foreign war against a queen rather than a civil war against a Roman general. The popular image of the manipulative seductress was born from this political necessity, Rome's need to demonize a terrifyingly capable rival. The conflict ended in 31 BCE at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's forces obliterated the joint naval fleet, leaving Egypt defenseless. Octavian invaded Egypt by land. He intended to capture Cleopatra alive so he could parade her in chains during a Roman triumphal procession. Following Antony's suicide, Cleopatra took her own life. It was a final act of agency that denied Rome its ultimate trophy. The exact method of her death remains a mystery. While legend insists on a dramatic snakebite, historical evidence suggests she likely used a coordinated dose of poisonous herbs. Her death marked the end of the 300-year Ptolemaic dynasty, yet her statecraft had held the Roman war machine at bay for decades, leaving a legacy of fierce independence rather than submission.